The crystalline walls of Nexus Station hummed with the energy of 1,000 different species, conducting business across the galaxy. Captain Rex Thornfield adjusted his pristine military uniform, the golden threads catching the artificial sunlight streaming through a massive viewport. His chest bore the insignia of the Terran Defense Corps, each metal gleaming like a small star against the deep blue fabric. "Another boring diplomatic meeting," Rex muttered to Lieutenant Sarah Chun, who walked beside him with measured steps. "Why do we need to escort some civilian bureaucrat anyway?" Sarah glanced at her datapad, her expression carefully neutral. "Orders from High Command, sir. Apparently this meeting is crucial for the new trade agreements with the Zentari Empire." Rex rolled his eyes dramatically. The Zentari Empire controlled half the known galaxy, their technology centuries ahead of most civilizations. Their ships could slice through space-time itself, and their warriors were legendary for never losing a single battle. Yet here he was, playing babysitter to some desk jockey who probably had never seen real combat. The transport bay doors hissed open, revealing a small shuttle with civilian markings. Rex straightened his shoulders, preparing to meet whatever soft academic or trade negotiator stepped out. The shuttle's ramp lowered with mechanical whir, and a figure emerged. She was small, maybe 5'4", wearing a simple gray jumpsuit with civilian identification badge clipped to her chest. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she carried nothing but a single briefcase. No entourage, no guards, no fancy equipment. Just her. Rex burst into laughter. "Seriously," he said, loud enough for half the docking bay to hear. "This is our VIP? Lady, I think you took a wrong turn somewhere. The tourist shuttles are on Deck 7. The woman looked up at him with calm green eyes, completely unbothered by his mockery. She walked forward with quiet confidence, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. "Captain Thornfield, I presume?" Her voice was steady, professional. "I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez. I believe you're my escort to the diplomatic meeting." Rex looked down at her civilian badge and laughed again, this time even louder. Several nearby dock workers turned to stare. "Oh, this is rich. They're sending a civilian to negotiate with the Zentari Empire? What's next? Sending my grandmother to command a battle cruiser." Elena simply nodded and began walking toward the main corridor. "Shall we proceed, Captain? I wouldn't want to keep the Zentari delegation waiting." Rex followed, still chuckling. "You know, sweetheart, the Zentari don't exactly play nice with amateurs. These aren't your typical corporate executives. They're warriors who conquered half the galaxy before humanity even figured out faster-than-light travel. Maybe you should let the professionals handle this one." "I appreciate your concern, Captain," Elena replied without turning around. "But I assure you I'm exactly where I need to be." Sarah Chun had been unusually quiet, studying her datapad with increasing intensity. Something about the woman's name seemed familiar, but she couldn't quite place it. She tapped her screen, pulling up the classified personnel files that required her security clearance. The color drained from her face. "Captain," Sarah whispered urgently, tugging at Rex's sleeve. "Captain, we need to talk. Now." Rex waved her off dismissively. "Not now, Lieutenant. I'm too busy babysitting our fearless negotiator here." He turned back to Elena, who was examining the station directory. "So tell me, Doc, what's your grand strategy? Go to bore them to death with trade regulations? Maybe show them some pie charts." Elena glanced at him with what might have been amusement. "Something like that, Captain." They entered the main transit tube, the magnetic levitation system, carrying them silently through the station's core. Through the transparent walls, Rex could see the massive Zentari diplomatic vessel docked at the premium berth. It was a work of art and terror combined, its hull shimmering with an energy field that bent light around its edges. "Look at that beauty," Rex said, pressing his face to the window. "The ZDS Shadowblade, flagship of Admiral Keth'tar's personal fleet. That ship has enough firepower to reduce a planet to asteroids. And you're going to waltz in there with your little briefcase and negotiate with its crew." Elena joined him at the window, studying the alien vessel with professional interest. "It's certainly impressive. I've read about Zentari engineering, but seeing it in person is something else entirely." Sarah was frantically scrolling through classified files, her hands trembling slightly. She found what she was looking for, and had to read it 3 times to believe it. "Captain," she hissed, grabbing Rex's arm hard enough to leave marks. "We need to step aside. Right now." Rex finally noticed his lieutenant's distress. "What's gotten into you, Chin? You look like you've seen a ghost." Sarah pulled him aside, speaking in urgent whispers while Elena waited patiently by the window. "Sir, do you have any idea who that woman is?" "Some civilian negotiator who's way out of her league," Rex replied. "Why?" Sarah showed him her datapad screen. "Her name isn't just Elena Vasquez, sir. It's Dr. Elena Vasquez. As in Dr. Elena Vasquez, hero of the vegan campaign. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ghost of Titan Station. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the woman who single-handedly prevented the Andromedan War." Rex's laughter died in his throat. He stared at the screen, reading the classified file with growing horror. Combat decorations that made his medals look like participation trophies. Mission reports that were still classified above his security level. Confirmed kill counts that defied belief. "That's impossible," he whispered. "She's just a civilian. Look at her badge." "That civilian badge?" Sarah's voice was tight, with barely controlled panic. "Sir, that's not a standard civilian identification. That's a C7 clearance badge. The highest level in the entire Terran Federation. There are maybe 12 people in the galaxy who carry that authorization." Rex felt his stomach drop through the floor. C7 clearance meant direct access to the Federation Council. It meant authority that superseded military command structures. It meant this small woman in the gray jumpsuit could order him to scrub toilets with a toothbrush, and he'd have to salute and ask which bathroom. "But she didn't correct me," he said weakly. "She just took the insults." Sarah gave him a look that could have melted steel. "Sir, Elena Vasquez once spent 6 months undercover in a Zephyrian prison camp, pretending to be a helpless refugee while gathering intelligence on their invasion plans. She let them torture her for information she didn't have, all while planning their destruction from the inside. Do you really think your petty comments would bother her?" The transit tube came to a smooth stop at the diplomatic sector. Through the speakers came the announcement that the Zentari delegation had arrived and was requesting the presence of a Terran representative. Elena turned from the window, her expression unchanged. "Shall we proceed, Captain?" Rex's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. All his earlier confidence had evaporated, replaced by a creeping sense of dread. He'd just spent the last 20 minutes insulting one of the most dangerous people in the galaxy. "Dr. Vasquez," he managed to croak. "I think there might have been some confusion. I didn't realize." Elena held up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "Captain, there's no need for apologies. You were doing your job, protecting what you thought was a civilian in over her head. That shows good instincts, even if your delivery could use some work." She started walking toward the diplomatic wing, her casual stride unchanged. "Besides, the Zentari respect strength and cunning above all else. If I can't handle a little ribbing for my own escort, how could I possibly negotiate with warriors who conquered half the galaxy?" Rex followed numbly, his mind reeling. Sarah walked beside him, occasionally shaking her head in disbelief at her captain's spectacular failure in situational awareness. They reached the entrance to the diplomatic conference room, where 2 massive Zentari guards stood at attention. Each was nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in natural armor plating that gleamed like polished obsidian. Their 4 arms held weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. One of the guards spoke in perfect standard Terran, his voice like grinding stone. "State your business and authorization." Elena stepped forward calmly, pulling out her C7 badge. The guard's multiple eyes focused on it, and something like surprise flickered across his alien features. He spoke rapidly in his native tongue to his companion, who responded with what sounded like amazement. The first guard straightened to attention. "Dr. Elena Vasquez, the Admiral is eager to meet you. He has heard many stories of your accomplishments." Elena smiled, the expression transforming her face from professional to genuinely warm. "Please tell Admiral Keth'tar that I'm honored by his invitation. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time." The guard stepped aside, the massive doors sliding open to reveal the conference room beyond. Through the gap, Rex caught a glimpse of the Zentari delegation. 5 of the galaxy's most feared warriors, including Admiral Keth'tar himself, the being who had never lost a battle in 3 centuries of conquest. Elena paused at the threshold and turned back to Rex. "Captain, Lieutenant Chun, thank you for the escort. I'll take things from here." Rex found his voice at last. "Dr. Vasquez, I owe you an apology. A major one. I was completely out of line and Elena's smile widened, showing teeth that somehow seemed more predatory than friendly. "Captain, the only thing you owe me is a good story to tell your grandchildren someday, about the time you laughed at a civilian badge and lived to tell the tale." She disappeared into the conference room, the door sealing behind her with finality that sounded like a tomb closing. Rex stood in the hallway, staring at the sealed doors, while Sarah checked her chronometer. "The meeting is scheduled for 4 hours, sir. What would you like to do while we wait?" Rex wiped sweat from his forehead with a shaking hand. "I need a drink, Chun. A very strong drink. Maybe several of them." As they walked back toward the officers' lounge, Rex couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just witnessed something extraordinary. The small woman with the civilian badge had walked into a room full of galactic conquerors like she owned the place. And somehow, Rex suspected, she probably did, behind those sealed doors, the real negotiations were about to begin. Not the kind conducted with trade agreements and diplomatic protocols, but the kind that decided the fate of entire civilizations. Elena Vasquez had work to do. Inside the conference room, Admiral Keth'tar of the Zentari Empire studied the small human woman with all 4 of his golden eyes. His massive frame, easily 9 feet of pure muscle and natural armor, dominated the space even while seated. The other Zentari delegates flanked him like living weapons, their attention focused entirely on Elena. "Dr. Elena Vasquez," the Admiral said, his voice carrying the weight of 3 centuries of conquest. "The ghost of Titan Station sits before me at last. I confess, I expected someone more imposing." Elena settled into her chair with fluid grace, placing her briefcase on the polished table between them. "Admiral Keth'tar, the pleasure is mine. I've studied your tactical innovations for years. The siege of Proxima 7 was particularly brilliant." A rumble that might have been laughter emerged from the Admiral's throat. "You flatter me, Doctor, though I wonder if you would be so complimentary if you had been defending that world." "Actually," Elena said, opening her briefcase with a soft click, "I was—" The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Every Zentari warrior leaned forward, their secondary arms instinctively moving toward their weapons. Admiral Keth'tar's golden eyes narrowed to laser-sharp points. "Impossible," he growled. "Proxima 7 fell in 6 hours. No defender survived." Elena pulled out a single data crystal from her briefcase, its surface reflecting the room's lights like a captured star. "No official defender survived, Admiral. But sometimes the most effective resistance comes from those who were never supposed to be there in the first place." She placed the crystal on the table and activated it. A holographic display flickered to life, showing detailed schematics of Zentari battle formations, weapon specifications, and tactical weaknesses that had never been shared outside their empire. Admiral Keth'tar's entire body went rigid. "Where did you acquire this intelligence?" Elena's smile was pure predator now. All pretense of civilian harmlessness evaporated like morning mist. "I was a graduate student studying xenobiology when your fleet arrived at Proxima 7. Just another scared civilian hiding in the research bunkers, waiting for rescue that would never come." The hologram shifted, showing surveillance footage from the fallen colony. A young woman with Elena's face moved through damaged corridors, helping evacuate researchers and medical staff while Zentari forces systematically dismantled the planetary defenses. "For 6 months after the official surrender, I stayed behind," Elena continued conversationally, "hiding in the ruins, studying your soldiers, learning your language, understanding your tactics. You see, Admiral, humans have this peculiar trait. When we're pushed to the edge, we don't break. We adapt." The footage showed the same young woman, now wearing scavenged Zentari armor, moving through enemy positions like a shadow. planting explosives, sabotaging supply lines, turning predator into prey. The supply depot explosions, Admiral Keth'tar said slowly, recognition dawning in his ancient eyes. The communications blackouts, the missing patrol squads. All me, Elena confirmed cheerfully, though I particularly enjoyed your reaction to the food poisoning incident. Did you know that Terran bacteria can survive in Zentari digestive systems? Fascinating biological adaptation, really. One of the younger Zentari delegates, General Vasquez, slammed his fist on the table. You cost us 3 battalions and delayed our advance by months. My brother died in those raids. Elena turned to face him directly, her green eyes suddenly colder than deep space. Your brother died because he chose to invade a peaceful research colony. My friends died because they chose to defend their home. We all make choices, General. Some of us just live with the consequences better than others. Admiral Keth'tar raised a hand, silencing his subordinate. Continue, Doctor. I find myself curious about how a single human graduate student caused such difficulties for my forces. Elena deactivated the hologram and leaned back in her chair. It's quite simple, really. You conquered Proxima 7, according to traditional military doctrine. Overwhelming force, swift victory, occupation protocols. But you made one critical error in your calculations, which was you assumed that defeating our military meant defeating our people. Elena's voice carried a note of steel that made even the hardened Zentari warriors shift uncomfortably. You never understood that humans don't fight wars the way other species do. We don't just defend territory or resources. We defend ideas, hope, the belief that tomorrow can be better than today. She stood and walked to the viewing window, gazing out at the stars beyond. After 6 months of my little rebellion, you withdrew your forces from Proxima 7. Officially, it was for strategic redeployment. Unofficially, it was because one annoying graduate student had made occupation more expensive than conquest. Admiral Keth'tar studied her with newfound respect. The reports claimed equipment failures and supply issues. You're saying one human caused all of that? Elena turned back to face him, her smile now genuinely warm instead of predatory. Oh, Admiral, I wasn't alone. I had help from the most powerful force in the galaxy, which is bureaucracy. The silence that followed was so complete that the hum of the station's life support systems became audible. Then, impossibly, Admiral Keth'tar began to laugh. Not the rumbling growl from before, but genuine, delighted laughter that shook his massive frame. Bureaucracy, he gasped between laughs. You defeated the Zentari Empire with paperwork. Elena grinned. Never underestimate the power of properly filed complaints. Admiral, did you know that your occupation protocols require environmental impact assessments for any major construction projects? Or that your own military regulations mandate cultural preservation surveys before establishing permanent bases? The Admiral's laughter grew louder. You buried us in our own red tape. For 8 months, I filed complaint after complaint, survey after survey, environmental impact report after environmental impact report, all perfectly legal under your own occupation statutes. Your administrators were so busy processing paperwork that they never noticed the real sabotage happening right under their noses. General Vasquez looked thoroughly confused, but the explosions, the raids... Oh, those were real too, Elena said cheerfully. But they were just the opening act. The main event was watching your bureaucrats tie themselves in knots trying to process 17,000 pages of environmental documentation for a mining operation that violated 14 different cultural preservation ordinances. Admiral Keth'tar wiped tears from his golden eyes. Magnificent, absolutely magnificent. No wonder the council speaks of you with such creative language. Elena's expression grew more serious. Which brings us to why we're really here. Admiral, the Zentari Empire stands at a crossroads. You can continue your expansion through conquest, fighting every step of the way against species who will resist with everything they have. Or you can join the Galactic Trade Consortium as an equal partner. Open borders, free trade, shared technology. The resources you've been conquering by force, available through commerce instead. General Vasquez scoffed. The Empire does not negotiate with inferior species. Elena's smile turned razor-sharp again. General, I just spent the last hour explaining how this inferior species turned one of your greatest military victories into a strategic withdrawal, using nothing but persistence and proper documentation. Are you really sure you want to continue that line of reasoning? Admiral Keth'tar held up a hand before his subordinate could respond. Dr. Vasquez raises an interesting point. But what guarantee do we have that this consortium would honor any agreements? What's to stop them from turning on us the moment it becomes convenient? Elena reached into her briefcase again, pulling out a second data crystal. Because, Admiral, we need you as much as you need us. The Andromedian Federation has been quiet for the past 5 years, but our intelligence suggests they're planning something big. Something that will require the combined strength of every major power in the galaxy to stop. She activated the second crystal, showing star charts marked with Federation fleet movements and resource allocations. They're massing forces along the rim worlds, Admiral, building something that our best analysts can't identify. When they move, they'll hit fast and hard, and none of us will be strong enough to stop them alone. The Zentari delegate studied the intelligence with growing alarm. Admiral Keth'tar's expression grew grim. How long do we have? Our estimates suggest 18 months before they're ready to launch whatever they're planning. Maybe less if they accelerate their timeline. Elena deactivated the display and looked directly at the Admiral. Admiral, your empire has spent centuries conquering territory. But territory won't help you if the Andromedians glass every inhabited world from here to the galactic core. The conference room fell silent, except for the soft hum of recycled air. Admiral Keth'tar stared out the viewport at his flagship, its weapons gleaming like captured starlight. What exactly are you proposing, Doctor? Elena leaned forward, her voice intense with conviction. A defensive alliance. The Zentari Empire, the Terran Federation, the Altarian Republic, and 6 other major powers working together. Shared intelligence, coordinated defense strategies, combined research initiatives. Not conquest, Admiral. Survival. General Vasquez spoke up again, his tone less hostile than before. And if we refuse? Elena's expression was matter of fact. Then in 2 years, you'll be fighting the Andromedians alone while the rest of us are already dead. I've seen their battle projections, General. They don't take prisoners, and they don't leave survivors. They're not interested in conquest. They want extermination. Admiral Keth'tar was quiet for a long moment, his 4 eyes studying Elena with calculating intensity. You're asking us to abandon everything we are, everything we've built. No, Admiral, I'm asking you to become something greater. Elena stood and walked back to the window. Your empire has proven its strength through conquest. Now prove your wisdom through cooperation. The Admiral joined her at the window, his massive form dwarfing her small frame. And if this alliance succeeds, what then? Elena smiled up at him. Then we explore the galaxy together, instead of fighting over it. We share knowledge instead of hoarding it. We build something that will last longer than any empire, stronger than any fleet. You really believe that's possible? Admiral, 6 hours ago, one of my own officers was laughing at my civilian badge and calling me sweetheart. Now, he's probably somewhere having a nervous breakdown while he reads my service record. Elena's grin was infectious. If I can surprise a Terran captain, imagine what we could accomplish together. Admiral Keth'tar's laughter rumbled through the room again. Dr. Vasquez, you're either the most brilliant negotiator I've ever met, or the most dangerous lunatic in the galaxy. Why not both? The Admiral extended one massive hand toward her. The Empire will consider your proposal. You have our word that we will give it the serious consideration it deserves. Elena shook his hand, her small fingers disappearing in his armored grip. That's all I can ask for, Admiral. But don't take too long deciding. The Andromedians won't wait for us to finish our deliberations. As the meeting concluded, and the Zentari delegation filed out, Admiral Keth'tar paused at the door. Dr. Vasquez, I have one final question. Yes. The captain who escorted you here, the one who laughed at your badge, what will happen to him? Elena's smile was pure mischief. Oh, Captain Thornfield? Nothing at all, though I suspect he'll think twice before judging someone by their appearance again. You're not angry? Admiral, I once spent 6 months pretending to be a helpless refugee while planning the downfall of an entire occupation force. Do you really think a few jokes about my civilian status would bother me? Admiral Keth'tar's laughter followed him down the corridor as Elena packed up her briefcase. Outside, she knew Captain Rex Thornfield was probably still drinking himself into a stupor while Lieutenant Chin tried to calculate exactly how badly her superior had just embarrassed himself. Elena chuckled as she closed her briefcase. Some days, she really loved her job. The fate of the galaxy might hang in the balance, but at least she'd have some entertaining stories to tell at the next Federation Council meeting.